start out today because I am talking today about Prop 2. And this right here is the 28 pages of Prop 2. This is the initiative. So I have a question for all of you in this room. How many of you in here have read this? Like Scott, I started to say not Scott, and of course Raina and Bruce have read it. How about the rest of you? Anybody besides those three read it? Good for you. Now, the rest of you, you cannot vote for this because you can't vote for it if you haven't read it, right? How would you like life to be that way? And I want to remind you, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's in here because that's what I'm here for today. But I'm going to tell you 3 reasons why you should vote no. Now, the first one I just said, have you read this? If you have not read this, you should vote no. And the reason for that is because the next reason, number 2, is that it's not constitutional. To vote for things like this on the ballot is not the system that the founders gave us. We live in a republic. This is not how our republic operates. And so that's the other reason. Any initiative like this that they put on the ballot, and it's blackmail, when the legislature doesn't give them what they want, when I say it's blackmail, they tell them. I can't tell you how many times that we heard the threats. You either pass this bad law, or we'll put it to the people, because we know the people will pass it. Because all they have to do is give them sound bites, right? How many times have you heard the sound bites that go with this? One of the first things, the very first poll that was out there, the question they asked the people was, do you support doctor-prescribed non-smoking marijuana? Over 70% of the people said yes. I would have said yes. This is not doctor-prescribed, and it does allow for smoking. But those sound bites have driven this entire thing all this time and kept those numbers up high. So bad idea to vote for an initiative. And then, I loved what Jack said and what the lady said. The prophet will tell us what to do and when to do it. Well, in this situation in April, the prophet told us what to do. The prophet said in April, the statement came from the first presidency to vote no on this initiative. And it was very, very clear. It was everywhere. And all the polls after that still showed that over 70% of the people still support it. So you only follow the prophet when you agree with him. So you might talk to the lady Jack and find out how she feels about that. So I want to tell you, as I said, I support medical marijuana. But what is medical marijuana is what this is all about. Because what they're proposing in this initiative is not medical marijuana at all. The thing you got to be concerned about is THC. Now, the legislature actually passed this last year, and it was signed into law and became effective July 1st, and that is CBD oil. Now, so many people will say, well, marijuana is an herb. God gave us marijuana. And they quote scripture to say this is an herb. But most all those scriptures, whether they're in the Bible or in Doctrine and Covenants or where you read them, talk about wholesome herbs. And so it's important to know what a wholesome herb is, and THC is not a wholesome herb. That is the psychotropic part of the marijuana plant. And that's what the big argument and the big fight's all about, is THC. CBD oil, you can go into a health food store right now in the state of Utah and legally buy all you want. Doesn't even tell you how much you can have or what you can do with it. You can take it home and use it for whatever you want to, as much as you want. That is the part that helps with most of the things that we've been hearing about. Now, THC, being psychotropic, yeah, I'm sure it helps with a lot of things because it does get them out of their pain. There's no doubt about it. But all psychotropic drugs would put you on such a high that you're out of pain. But do we want that to be sold in these dispensaries? All of you received from me at the beginning there is a document that said 15 reasons why Proposition 2, which is the Utah Medical Cannabis Act, is more recreational than medical. And if you see right at the very beginning, I say that on page 23, it says that cannabis means marijuana. That's very important to know that, because so many people say to me, Gayle, why do you keep calling this marijuana? You're not being honest. Cannabis is medical. You need to be calling it cannabis. They are identical. They are exactly the same. Look them up in any dictionary. Go online and read about it. Cannabis is marijuana. But people, again, are confused with sound bites because they think cannabis means medical. They think, in fact, most people tell me they think cannabis means CBD because of all the names. There's, cannabidiol and cannabinoid and all these names that are very confusing. Cannabis is medical marijuana. But we care about individuals. I care about individuals that are suffering, and we want them to be able to get the help that they need. But I want people to be helped, not harmed. And if you take time to read this 28 pages, if you went online and looked up some of the things that you're reading, because it's very confusing, you'll begin to study and read and learn about this medical marijuana and what they're talking about, and that this isn't medical. It is not medical, and we don't want people harmed or hurt. We want to help them. One of the very first things, if you were to look at the number one thing that I have on that sheet, it talks about that if this initiative should pass in November, as soon as it is certified, then marijuana will become legal throughout this state right then to anybody in this room, me, any of us that want it. All we have to say is that we believe that we would qualify for the medical marijuana card that they received from the state. You can't get it yet, so they can't. So it's just say, I believe I'd qualify. And that means headaches, that means pain of almost any kind, and it goes on and on, depression, so goes the list. And so there it is, it's right there. That's the number one thing that makes it recreational marijuana, and you'll be able to get this. But where are you going to buy it? Now it says that you can use it, you can possess it, and you can manufacture it. And they don't even deny this. They didn't like it when we started pointing this out because it was supposed to be hidden. But if you notice from what I passed out to you, that on every page, everything I said gives you a page number or some reference to where that law is. And you can look it up and you can know for yourself. So, but where are they going to buy it? Because it's not legal, remember? It's the only place to buy it in Utah. This is starting in November, next month, if it passes. The only place to buy it will be on the black market, or grow your own. That's the other thing. How, medicine, like they're calling it psychotropic medicine, when and where can you grow psychotropic medicine and it is legal? Yeah, we can grow our herbs, are wholesome, but not marijuana. Marijuana is a Schedule I drug, and yet you'll be able to grow it. And you'll be able to shop if this passes, people will shop in the marijuana stores. You just go into the marijuana store, pick out what you want. It's not dosed. It's not different. Parents can go in there and buy it for their children, and they can buy the same thing on the shelf, whole plant marijuana, for a 2-year-old that their 40-year-old father is buying for himself. Is that medicine again? And it also talks about that the parents will be able to possess and manufacture marijuana for their children. So if you were to go over to Colorado and go into the marijuana stores there, and you went into a medical marijuana store, and you looked around, you looked at the products, see what you wanted, see what you think, then you go down the street and go into a recreational marijuana store, guess what? Identical products. Nothing is different. It's not dosed. It's not, the people who work there are just employees, non-trained employees. They can't tell you what is medicine and how much you should take of this and how much THC you should have and how much CBD oil you should have and when and how you should take it. It's not medicine. And then the marijuana of today, that's the other issue. The marijuana of today is not the marijuana of the 60s. The marijuana of your parents and your grandparents, the 2 to 3% THC. The marijuana of today is genetically altered. This is genetically modified marijuana. Just last month, a new report came out from the Rocky Mountain, they call it Rocky Mountain High, da-da-da-da-da. But it's a government survey. The word high is kind of interesting that it's in that now, but it's always been Rocky Mountain High before now. Anyway, in that, it said that just last year, in 2017, these are the average numbers coming out of Colorado, government numbers, that the average THC potency sold in the marijuana stores in Colorado was 19.6% for whole plant marijuana, the flowers. Now remember, it used to be 2 to 3%. And for concentrates, 68.6% percentage of THC. This is terrifying, scary things that we all should be concerned about. You know, when we talk about helping the patients, because we do care about these patients and we want to help these patients, but at the same time, what about the individuals that are being harmed by marijuana use, especially our children? Last year in Colorado, 1 in 5 traffic deaths were marijuana related compared to just 1 in 10 8 years before they legalized marijuana in any way. And monthly marijuana use by children, again, just last year, 12 years and older has increased 45%. Can you tell children that marijuana is medicine? You send the message that it's good for them. And the yearly rate of hospitalization in Colorado has increased by 148%. And you know, as I mentioned, that the Utah legislature has already passed this bill that allows for the CBD oil. And so, you know, check with your health food stores. Go online and read up about that. And if that is something that you would like to use, you can do it. You can do it. Has nothing whatsoever to do with what we're talking about today. So if you were to go down this 15 reasons and read all the things that are on here about why this is more recreational than medical, I think you'd begin to understand. And I've made it easy for you by putting page numbers there. So you can pull up the initiative and start to read it. And just read these page numbers where I've got this and see that I've got the page numbers and the code numbers. That's the other confusing things if you try to read this. You have to know how to read legislation, because not only are there 28 pages of this legislation, it has all the code numbers in. So then you need to look up the code numbers, and that's not easy. And you have to read those code numbers and understand them, and then keep going back and forth, because the numbers are all the way through, back and forth. Because what it does is it changes this law, and you may read something that sounds like, well, this doesn't sound so bad, till you look up the code number and find out, based on the existing code, that's why this is bad, or an existing code that's just been repealed. Under this recreational marijuana, Prop 2 that we have right now, the consequences, the penalties for using marijuana totally change. The biggest thing you can be charged with is an infraction with a $100 fine every time. You know, usually if you break a law and then 2 weeks later you break it again, the penalties get higher and higher. Never changes. Anybody who wants to use marijuana could care less about an infraction that will never show up on their record and a $100 fine. So please go over this. Now I want to talk about something that happened, you know, as I mentioned last month, that report came out from actually it's the Rocky Mountain High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Report. And this, the man that's quoted all the way through this is the U.S. Attorney for Utah. His name is John Huber. And he says one very important thing that he's concerned about that cannot be lost in the discussion. He said the use, the production, the distribution, and transportation of marijuana violates federal law. Now, we can talk all day long about whether we should or should not abide by federal law. But I find this very interesting that the very same people who would not stand up against the federal government when it came to same-sex marriage is now totally ignoring. We have same-sex marriage because they said there's nothing we can do about it. It's now federal law. Those very same people are saying, we don't care if it's federal law. We're not going to abide by it. Well, it's put him in a really bad situation because he says, you know, his main concern, of course, is law enforcement and what's he supposed to do about that. And he said he does not know at this point how his office will deal with this. But he's the one that pointed out all the things that are going on and the crime, the increases in crime, And he says, I believe in the future, if this becomes law in Utah, Utah culture, it will change based on the studies of what's happened in Colorado and their experiences. He says, my job will become even more difficult in addressing the criminal concerns that attend to any form of medical marijuana or marijuana legalization. And he says, as of June of 2017, in Colorado, there are 491 retail medical marijuana stores, retail marijuana stores. That is 2.5 times more than McDonald's. And then, and I mean, there's just so many things that he points out has happened in Colorado. But yesterday, just in yesterday's paper, the Deseret News, again, quoting the same Mr. Huber, they were talking about how, first of all, before that, they were talking about how the highway patrol troopers pulled this guy over, and in search of his van, they found 7,000 pen cartridges containing THC, 800 hashi cigars, 1,400 vape pens with THC, 400 jars of marijuana concentrate, and remember how high the 68% THC in the concentrates, and 204 one-pound packages of green plants that tested as marijuana. And so remember that THC is the chemical responsible for most of the psychological effects. And again, John Huber said, legalized marijuana used in other states has a negative impact on Utah. And he talked about how they're coming through Utah with all these things, but next month they'll be able to stop, because that's where they're going to get all their stuff that they can use is off these guys coming through that's been being arrested. So if they can get to them before they're arrested, they can get any product they want. And he talked about how these drivers are coming from the East Coast loaded down with marijuana and then returning with loads of dirty cash. This is the kind of thing that we are bringing into Utah, and we need you to vote no. Remember, the church has not changed their position. There's been some people that have been concerned about that, but let me remind you what was just said when the last statement. And this was from Elder Jack Gerard, speaking for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. He said, the church remains opposed to Proposition 2, and we've encouraged folks to vote against it. And just remember that. So when you want to say, you do what the prophet says, well, in this time, he's concerned. You know why he's so concerned? He's concerned about our children. We need to be concerned about our children, because we're hearing what's happened in the other states, what this will do to the children, what this does to the developing brain. Remember the child's developing brain. Up until age 26, marijuana will destroy their brain. And there's nobody on either side of this issue that doesn't agree with that. So a couple of things I want to end with. One is, I have out here 150 signs that say vote no. Now, it cost us a $5 tip to bring those signs in here. If I have to take any of them home, you're going to have to give donations to Don, so he's going to cost him another $5. That means it's going to be $10. So you don't know him, so you don't want him to have to spend money. So please take those signs. Each of you take at least 2, and if there's a husband and wife, that means you take 4. Otherwise, I'm going to be taking them home. People are already voting. This is an emergency, folks. Please take those signs. There are billboards. It's so expensive. The big marijuana money has come into this state like you've never seen happen before. And we are the grassroots. So please help. I've given you these materials. Read these materials. Make copies of them. Take them to your friends and neighbors. And please take those signs, because we need you. And we need your help. And then one last thing. Don't give me the sign yet. I'm watching it here. I got less than a minute. But anyway, just want you to know. Last time I was here, I told all of you how much I needed a secretary. I have a secretary. She came with a husband. I mean, this husband's now helping us. He's now one of our chapter presidents, so check with him if you live up here. That's Bruce. That was a great success. I need that same success again, because we are still, don't we, Raina? We need so much help. Please help us. Please help us. Okay, it doesn't count that I'm calling on Dick. Yes, Dick? Thank you for, yeah, good for you. Well, see, Colorado did a favor for you. Yes, that is so important. You know, if you go online, in case you're interested, you go online, you take whole plant marijuana or some of the concentrates, and it shows you how to make this substance that infuses your drinks. Takes about 3 hours. All the details are there. And then the children can make this, put it in their drinks, carry around their soda pop at school in their backpack, and they're drinking marijuana all day. No, vote no. Please, please vote no. Because nobody knows or pays attention to the percentage of THC. They're thinking they're dealing with something entirely different. It's terribly addictive, destroys the child's brain, and is just as bad, and we'll find out in time, as what they're doing with opioids. I make that suggestion. I mean, I mention that all the time. The other side is saying, use marijuana instead of opioids. They said marijuana is the solution to the opioid crisis. Total lie. Another soundbite, another reason to try to get you to vote yes. Vote no.